Hey guys, I'm Jordy, and this is your guide to the explosive hard mode, the 4-tower Flame Leviathan encounter.
Threat assessment protocol active. Primary target engaged.
Now, Flame Leviathan is a super unique encounter in terms of rating up to this point. Everyone hops into one of 3 different vehicles and progresses toward the far end of a long runway past dwarves, hulking giants, spider bots, and 4 towers, each of which imbue the final boss of the area, Flame Leviathan, with power and complicates the battlefield with a specific mechanic. To begin the hard mode, you want to talk to this guy, the Lore Keeper of Norganon. Note that once you've talked to him, the 4 towers in the area will activate and cannot be disabled unless you destroy them yourself. If you want to just do normal mode without activating the towers, talk to Bran. If you're just doing normal mode, don't worry about this guide. You don't need it. Just gun it to the boss, mash your abilities till he dies. It's not hard, I promise. However, if you are doing hard mode, there is a lot of stuff to be aware of, so let's get into it. Okay, so Flame Leviathan is a 1-phase encounter with 5 or 6 separate types of roles that each of your raiders will be responsible for. The general strategy of this fight is to toss people from the Demolishers on top of Flame Leviathan, have them DPS the 4 turrets, and once they're dead, he'll be stunned and take extra damage. Do this over and over with as few deaths as you can manage, and he'll go down. There's a lot of other things going on, but that really is the basic strategy. Now, if you're just tuning into this guide to learn what your specific job is, you can use the scrubbing tool below to find it. Just look for your vehicle name and job. All right, before we get into that, you've got to know that complicating all of this are a bunch of different effects on the battlefield provided by each type of tower that you've left up. Let's discuss them real quick. First, the Tower of Life. Leaving this tower up decreases your fire damage done to Flame Leviathan by 10%, as well as spawning green beams in each corner of the battlefield where plant enemies will spawn and attack your vehicles. There are 2 types of plants, one Ward of Life that has a large amount of HP, and a few smaller Writhing Lashers. Second, the Tower of Frost. Leaving this tower up reduces your vehicle's movement speed by 20%, and creates a bluish beam of light that tracks around the room after players and attempts to center over them, where a big block of ice will fall and freeze the vehicle in place, immobilizing it, and will almost certainly lead to your vehicle's death. These ice blocks can be broken by other vehicles, but you should not get hit by these ever. Third, the Tower of Flames. This tower increases Flame Leviathan's fire damage by 50% and creates a slowly moving line of fire that tracks across the room and leaves bits of fire everywhere. You've just got to avoid it, that's not too hard. Finally, the Tower of Storms. This boosts Flame Leviathan's physical damage by 25% and creates pillars of light that will appear randomly and do 10% damage to anyone in it and 1% AoE damage to all vehicles on the battlefield. You just gotta avoid these as best you can as well. Okay, so those are the towers. Yes, that was a lot, but you only really need to know a few things regarding these, and we'll get to that later. Next up, let's talk about Flame Leviathan himself. This massive tank mob has a few abilities, each super dangerous and must be dealt with. First, Battering Ram. If you get close to him, he's going to deal a huge amount of damage and increase your damage taken by 50%. On hard mode, you just can't afford to take any of this damage. Don't get anywhere near him. Second, Gathering Speed. He targets someone and fixates on them, telegraphing that he'll be pursuing them and will do so for the next 30 seconds or unless interrupted. You've just got to run away from him while he's fixated on you. Next, Flame Vents. Every so often, he'll channel this ability and do a large amount of fire damage to anyone within range. This needs to be interrupted using the Siege Engine Driver's Electroshock ability. And finally, the Unavoidable Missile Barrages. The 4 turrets seated on top of him constantly attack your vehicles unless they're killed. We'll go over how to do that in a second. Okay, so that's Flame Leviathan. Now we're going to try to quickly go over each vehicle type. First, the Siege Engines. These are your linebackers of the encounter. They have a few abilities. First, on the 1 key is Ram. This does a bunch of damage to anything close and knocks back smaller enemies. You can use these on the plant enemies, but it's pretty useless on Flame Leviathan, so don't try. Second, and most importantly, Electroshock. On the 2 key, this shocks everyone in a cone in front of the siege engine and interrupts it. It's absolutely crucial that you use this on Flame Leviathan when he casts Flame Vents to avoid the damage it does. And finally, on the 3 key, Steam Rush. This boosts the speed of the tank in whatever direction you are facing for a short time. Note that you can't change directions once it's hit, so you make sure you really want to go where you're headed. Okay, so that's siege engines. Your job is to keep the plant enemies off your other vehicles, especially into any fires that you've laid out, which we'll talk about, as well as electroshocking Flame Leviathan. We assign one person we trust to do the interrupting, but everyone should keep an eye out. Now, siege engines are paired with a gunner. These guys have 3 abilities. First, on the 1 key, anti-air rocket. This is just a simple missile that you can fire out of your turret, and note that it pretty much fires as fast as you can spam, so go crazy. This should be used for knocking blue pyrite barrels out of the sky. Your demolishers need these to refuel their damage ability. Second, on the 2 key, the fire cannon. This is a big cannon blast that should be used on any plants you see around you. You can also lob these at Flame Leviathan, but it's not super important. You want to be focused on getting those pyrite barrels out of the air. And on the 3 key, the shield generator. If you notice that you're taking a lot of damage from Flame Leviathan, or you're running through fire lines or whatever, hit this to take less of it. Okay, so that's the siege engine and gunner. Let's talk about the Demolisher. Now, the Demolisher Driver is your most important role on the entire team. This operator needs to manage a lot of things, as well as making calls and prioritizing positioning to maximize DPS. You also want to put whoever has the highest eye level in the raid in these positions. You can put a bunch of disparate pieces on, regardless of stats, so long as it's high eye level to increase your damage considerably. Okay, let's talk about it. On the 1 key, hurl boulder. You can use this on the plants if they're near you, but it's not super important. You can also lob this at Flame Leviathan, but it's low priority. Second, and critically important, is hurl pyrite barrel. The Demolisher has a blue pyrite energy bar with a total of 50 energy. As you hurl pyrite at Flame Leviathan, each one costs 5 pyrite. Now, the barrels around the room that your siege engine and demo gunners have shot down each give 25 pyrite energy. Now, you want to toss these pyrite stacks at Flame Leviathan, which applies a super damaging dot that can stack up to 10 times. This dot lasts 10 seconds, so your goal is to get 10 stacks of pyrite up and then manage that dot by applying a new stack to refresh it every 5 to 8 seconds. Do not let this stack fall off. It is critically important that you have 10 stacks up at all times. If you let it drop, you lose an insane amount of DPS. We'll talk about this again soon. All right, on the 3 key is ram. This is a simple little knockback and damage ability that you can use if the plants get on you. Try to hit it if they're all over you and move away. Finally, throw passenger. Note that on here it's the 4 key, but it's not like that on live. Your gunner uses the ability load catapult, which seats them on the launch arm and makes it so that your only ability usable is throw. You cannot hurl pyrite, boulders, or ram while they're in the launch position. Once you've launched them, you get your abilities back. So make sure you call for your passenger to load only when you've just recently refreshed a pyrite stack. So that's the demo driver. Let's talk about its gunner. The demo gunner is also a critically important role because they're going to be the ones that launch onto Flame Leviathan to DPS the turrets. Good options here are mages, affliction warlocks, stuff like that. DKs are also fine, rogues are fine, DPS shamans who can lust are good too. Just big pumper DPS classes, and don't use hunters here because they can't attack the turret that they're on because it's too close to them. Okay, so the demo gunner. There's 2 jobs here. Let's talk about both. First, when you're in the demo, you've got a few abilities. First, mortar. This fires a boulder that should be prioritized on the plants, and any extra damage you can do on Flame Leviathan is fine. Second, anti-air rocket. This is the same thing as the siege gunner. Attack the blue pirate barrels in the air with this, spam as fast as you can click, and knock them out of the air. Third, on your 3 key, grab crate. This is very important. When you target one of these crates and hit this, a hook will fly out of your vehicle and grab the pyrite barrel and pull it toward you, refilling your demo driver's pyrite energy by 25. It's super important not to just hoover up all the barrels you see around you. It's a limited resource, and your demo driver can only use so much at one time. So wait until they're about half energy before grabbing another one, lest you use up all of the barrels in the battlefield and run out. On your 4 key, increase speed. This costs 25 pyrite, but it increases your speed by 100%, so it allows you to get away from a sticky situation, although you do want to do your best not to use it unless it's absolutely necessary. It just costs too much pyrite. Finally, load catapult. You'll climb into the catapult, silencing your demo driver and only allowing them to fire you off. So wait to do it until you're absolutely sure that it's okay, ideally when they call for it. Okay, so once you're in the catapult, at a certain point, your demo driver will launch you onto the top of Flame Leviathan, where you'll take up one of 4 positions on the tank next to a turret. From here, you need to pop all of your DPS cooldowns and absolutely blast these things. Do as much damage as you can and get them all dead, because once you do, Flame Leviathan will then be stunned, stopping his attacking and moving, and he will take 50% more damage from all sources. This is super important. Once he's stunned, you should drop off the tank onto the ground and do your absolute best to get back into your assigned Demolisher Gunner slot, because you're going to be under immense danger while you're not in a vehicle. We'll talk about that in a sec. Okay, finally, the bike drivers. We like to put the druids into these. You're like the taxis of the team, rushing people from Flame Leviathan back to their demolishers. On your 1 key, Sonic Horn. This is just a simple cone of damage. Use it on the plants if you see them near you. On your 2 key, Tar. This drops a pool of tar for 45 seconds around you, which slows enemies and can be ignited by the boulders and stuff from other vehicles. You want to place these at each green beam around the room and get it lit so that when the plants spawn, they're instantly taking damage and slowed. On your 3 key, Speed Boost. This costs some of your energy but doubles your speed. And on your 5 key, First Aid Kit. This fully heals your passenger and is the only source of healing in any vehicle in the team. Okay, so that's all the jobs. Let's get into the strategy. This is how we distribute players into roles. This is probably not optimal, but it's how we did it and got the kill, so it should work. We have 4 siege engine drivers, with 1 person designated as the interrupter that you trust. Each of these are assigned a gunner. Each of these people are assigned a corner of the room to focus on, keeping mobs off of your other vehicles, shooting down barrels, whatever. Now for the demolishers, you assign 5 drivers, and each driver has 2 people assigned to be their gunner. You might only have 1 gunner for the 5th driver, no big deal. Now gunner number 1 for each demo is immediately shot out of the demolisher on pole for a maximum of 4. From there, gunner 2 will take his place. Each demolisher is paired with a bike, and they are all assigned 1 corner of the room. The goal here is once the first gunner has disabled Leviathan and caused him to overload by killing the turrets, he'll drop off the boss and be immediately picked up by a bike, where it will then ferry him back to his assigned demolisher, who will then wait to swap into the passenger seat of that demo once the other gunner is tossed onto Flame Leviathan. Remember, you can only toss people successfully once overload is complete, so don't try to load or toss anyone until after Flame Leviathan starts moving again. In the meantime, that demo gunner needs to be yoinking pyrite barrels into the demolisher, keeping their pyrite topped up while the driver maintains 10 stacks at all time. This is critical. And really, that's it. If you've been maintaining your stacks, stunning the boss on repeat, keeping those plan ads dead with the bikes, dodging the falling ice blocks, the fireballs, the lightning, stunning him during flame vents, you should take him down. Congrats on defeating one of the most unique raid bosses in the game to date. Okay, let's do some general tips. First, before you engage the boss, you can knock a bunch of pyrite barrels out of the air and have them litter across the battlefield. This helps because you've got a lot of options fast and can quickly get your stacks up. This won't engage the boss, so go crazy and get as many as you can on the ground. Also, for the demo gunners who are getting taxied around, when you're in the passenger seat of the chopper, you can spam click onto the demolisher and just transfer from one vehicle to the other. They just need to be close enough. There's no need to step out and risk eating a missile. Also, once the gunner in the demo is loaded, your other gunner can jump in. There's no need to fire to get to the new passenger. The anti-air rockets that both the siege engines and the demolishers have is actually very good at killing the plant ads too. Just spam it as fast as you can because it does great damage. Another thing, mark your demolishers so that it's easy to see for your chopper drivers where their assigned demolisher is. They need to quickly get their passengers back to them, and a mark will help. And for the demo driver, you can miss if your aim sucks, but it is pretty forgiving. Do your best to get those people on there, and remember not to throw until he's begun moving again after the stun wears off. All right, that's it for Flame Leviathan. If you found this guide helpful, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It really does help me a lot in growing the channel. I super appreciate it. Also, I set up a Patreon. If you want to support me, you could get your name here like these amazing folks, or at the top tier, we can do some Warcraft log reviews to help you improve your play. Thanks to everyone who lent me their footage for this. Criteria, Schneesen, Twisted Face, Captvert. Thanks guys, it helped a ton. I've linked all their streams in the description below. All right, that's it for me. See you guys in Ulduar.